I want you to picture something with me for a second, if you would. Imagine you're standing in your living room and walking toward you is like an 8 or 9 week old Pomeranian puppy.
Oh, the best age.
Right. But honestly, walking might be a strong word here. It's basically just a tiny vibrating puff of coat sort of moving across an unfamiliar floor.
Yeah, just drifting across the hardwood.
Exactly. And it gets to the edge of a rug and it just stops dead. It hesitates. It's looking down at this, what, half-inch drop-off?
Like it's a canyon.
Yes, like
Yeah.
it's staring down a massive sheer cliff face. But then, literally a split second later, it charges forward with total confidence and immediately tries to climb a couch that is, to this dog, essentially the size of a small mountain.
It's such an incredible, almost funny contrast to witness. Because in one breath, you're looking at this creature that seems so incredibly fragile.
Like you just need to scoop it up and protect it from the wind.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then in the very next breath, it's showing you this bold, fearless, just completely outsized ambition.
And that wild contrast, between immense fragility and staggering boldness, that is the core of our deep dive today. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
We are zooming all the way in on the Pomeranian puppy stage today. We've got some really fascinating source material from a Canine Health and Behavior Academy, and our mission is to explore what they call the construction phase of a dog.
Which is such a great term for it.
It really is, because there's this trap, and it's a trap so many new owners fall right into. When you look at that tiny, fluffy, helpless baby, your absolute first instinct is just to protect it, right? You want to wrap it in bubble wrap and, I don't know, keep the scary world away.
Which, I mean, is a completely understandable human impulse. You'd have to be a robot not to feel that. But the sources are very clear that protection on its own is totally incomplete.
Right, because if you only see a baby to be protected, you're missing the picture.
Exactly. You miss the most crucial part of the biology and psychology at play. Because every single habit being formed in these early weeks, like how that puppy is picked up, how it's fed, how it processes a sudden noise, that is the literal construction material for the adult dog.
Wow. So it's not just keeping them safe.
No, not at all. You are building the adult dog's nervous system and behavioral baseline, piece by piece, in real time. So protection is necessary, definitely, but it has to be an active partner to development.
Well, let's get into the mechanics of that then. Because to build this confident adult dog, the work starts the very second they enter your house.
Day one. Minute one, really.
And this is a moment where, honestly, most people's instincts just lead them completely astray. The natural human instinct when you bring a new puppy home is to throw what is essentially a puppy party.
Oh, yeah. Everyone does it.
Right. You invite your friends over, you introduce the puppy to your other pets, the kids are running around screaming. There's just a lot of loud excitement.
Maybe even take it on a car ride to show it off to the neighbors.
Exactly. And it feels like love, right? It feels like welcoming them to the family, but it is fundamentally overwhelming. Based on the material, it's like bringing a newborn baby straight from the hospital maternity ward and just dropping them in the front row of a rock concert.
The rock concert analogy captures that sensory overload perfectly. The goal for those first few days should actually be calm orientation, not total immersion.
And to understand why that's so critical, I mean, we really have to look at the specific genetics of the dog you're dealing with here. A Pomeranian is not just a golden retriever in a tiny body.
Right. They have spitz ancestry.
Let's define that for a second, because spitz is one of those dog terms people hear, but they might not fully grasp what it means for behavior.
Sure.
When we talk about a spitz breed, we're talking about dogs historically bred for, harsh conditions, often for working, pulling, or guarding. They have the prick ears, the thick double coats.
And most importantly for this discussion, an intense hardwired vigilance. They are literally bred to notice every single change in their environment.
Right. They are biological alarm systems. So if their first few days in a new environment are loud and chaotic and completely unpredictable, you're taking that natural alertness and just flooding it with too much data.
Yeah. You overload the circuits. A puppy's nervous system is incredibly plastic right now. If it's constantly bombarded with overwhelming stimuli, their baseline levels of stress hormones like cortisol, they just stay elevated.
So you're effectively tipping their developing nervous system straight toward anxiety.
Exactly. Anxiety and suspicion. The goal is for that genetic alertness to mature into calm confidence, not hypervigilant fear. Their nervous system desperately needs a chance to settle and map the environment slowly.
So if you're listening to this right now and you're getting ready to bring a puppy home, calm orientation is actually really structured.
Highly structured.
It means establishing a defined safe space for retreat,
Yeah.
like a pen or a quiet corner where the puppy knows it absolutely cannot be bothered by humans or other pets.
Yes, a boundary that everyone respects.
Right. And it means supervised exploration of just one or two rooms, not giving them the run of the entire house on day one. Plus, a very predictable feeding rhythm. And most importantly, you have to practice strict protection from that flood of eager visitors we talked about.
You basically have to be the bouncer for your puppy's nervous system.
I love that. Be the bouncer. Because once you allow their brain to map a quiet environment, the next hurdle is just navigating the physical space of the home itself.
Which requires looking at your own living room through a much, much smaller lens.
But wait, this brings up like a real paradox for me, because if we are supposed to treat our house as this giant, treacherous obstacle course for a 5 to 6 pound puppy, aren't we encouraging what I call bubble boy syndrome?
Oh, the bubble boy syndrome is a real threat.
Right, because if I'm terrified of the hazards, my instinct is to literally carry the puppy everywhere. But if it never touches the floor and never explores on its own, aren't I creating a dog that will be terrified of its own shadow later?
Yes, and that is the exact tension every small dog owner faces. It's a fundamental difference between safety and isolation. The sources are very clear that they are not the same thing.
Protection shouldn't replace normal physical development.
Exactly. The puppy absolutely must feel different surfaces underfoot. Hardwood, carpet, grass, gravel.
Mhm.
It has to learn how its own body moves through space, how to balance, how to recover from a minor stumble.
That proprioception, right?
Right. The awareness of their body in space, that is what builds neurological confidence. If you just carry them everywhere, you're isolating them from the vital sensory input their brain actually requires to feel secure in the world.
Okay, so the goal is what the sources call proportional protection.
Precisely.
Like a Pomeranian puppy jumping off a couch might look incredibly cute and, ambitious, but that height is a genuine hazard for their small developing joints. What's a minor hop for a Labrador puppy is a potentially catastrophic orthopedic event for a Pom.
Yeah, the biomechanics of small breeds are notoriously unforgiving in that regard. One of the most common structural vulnerabilities in a Pomeranian is the patella, or the kneecap.
I've heard that's a huge issue for toy breeds.
It is. In dogs this tiny, the groove in the thenar that holds the kneecap in place is often too shallow. So if a puppy is constantly experiencing high-impact landings from jumping off furniture, or they're just constantly sliding and scrambling on slippery hardwood floors, that kneecap can easily slip out of its groove.
Ouch. That sounds awful.
It is. And over time, that causes permanent joint degradation. So mitigating disproportionate risks is just non-negotiable. You block off stairs, you strictly supervise furniture access, you put down rugs for traction.
And beyond the joints, there's also the physics of their actual body temperature, which I found fascinating in the transcript. Small dogs lose body heat much faster than larger dogs.
Yeah, it all comes down to their surface area to volume ratio.
Right. A tiny puppy has this huge amount of skin surface relative to the tiny volume of heat-generating mass inside its body. So a 70-degree room might feel perfectly comfortable to a human, but it can slowly sap the warmth right out of a 5-pound puppy.
So keeping their bedding warm and eliminating drafts, that isn't coddling. It's basic thermal regulation.
Which is why the concept of the foundation veterinary visit is so critical in these early weeks.
Yes, absolutely.
The vet isn't just like a mechanic you visit when the engine breaks down. From day one, this is a partnership to establish a baseline for this specific tiny organism.
They're checking that patellar movement early on, tracking their growth curve, and just establishing the metrics that will keep the dog healthy long term.
Now, protecting the outside of the dog is one thing, but maintaining their internal engine is a completely different biological challenge. We're actually going to do a whole separate deep dive on the granular details of food later, but for the puppy stage, there is this massive misconception about weight and nutrition in the sources.
People get so obsessed with a number on a scale.
They do. They weigh the puppy every day, stressing over ounces. But the real danger isn't necessarily the daily weight, is it? It's the sudden, acute drops in energy.
Right. This is a perfect example of how the size of the dog dictates the urgency of care. We are talking about hypoglycemia here, which is a severe drop in blood sugar.
Which is terrifying.
It really is. A Great Dane has a massive biological battery. It has the liver and muscle mass to store plenty of glycogen, which is the body's reserve fuel. A Pomeranian puppy has virtually no mass.
So they're like a smartphone with a tiny faulty battery.
That's exactly it. If they burn energy playing and don't eat frequently enough to replace it, that battery drains to zero incredibly fast.
And when that battery drains, it's not just that they get a little tired. A tiny puppy showing unusual sleepiness, trembling, physical weakness, or a sudden refusal to eat, that is a metabolic crisis.
It is not a situation where you say, let's just wait it out overnight and see if they feel better in the morning.
No. In a dog that small, a blood sugar crash is an immediate, critical veterinary concern. You simply do not have the buffer of time that you have with a larger breed. Their metabolism just runs incredibly hot and fast.
So true.
Okay, so we're managing their physical environment, protecting their joints, fueling their hyperactive metabolism. But the deepest challenge, and the one that honestly pays off the most over the next 15 years of the dog's life, is shaping how their very active, alert minds process the outside world.
Which brings us right back to that spitz alertness factor.
Yes, specifically around the concept of socialization.
Socialization is arguably the most misunderstood term in dog ownership today.
It really is. Most people think socialization means, like, exposure at maximum volume. They think it means you have to force your dog to be handled by every single stranger on the street, and they have to play with every single dog they encounter.
Which is a disaster for a spitz breed.
Right. If I take my alert puppy and force it into the hands of a dozen strangers, aren't I just proving to the dog that the world is chaotic and its boundaries will not be respected?
Absolutely.
So if the goal isn't to create a dog that absolutely adores every single person and dog it meets, what exactly is the biological goal here?
The goal is neutrality. Think of their spitz alertness like a car alarm. You cannot uninstall the alarm. They're bred to have one.
It's hardwired.
Exactly. But right now, as the puppy, the sensor is set so sensitively that a leash blowing across the street triggers the siren. Socialization isn't about breaking the alarm so it never goes off.
Right.
It is about calibrating the sensor.
Okay, so you want it to trigger only for actual unusual events.
Right. And more importantly, you want the alarm to turn off quickly when the threat is gone.
Yeah.
It's about building the muscle of noticing and recovering.
Calibrating the sensor, that is a brilliant way to frame it. So real socialization is about observing the world without having to directly interact with every piece of it. You want the puppy to see a stranger, have that moment of alertness, the car alarm sensor registers the person, and then they recover.
They settle back down.
Yeah, they process the data. Okay, that person is there, but I am at a safe distance, I am secure, and my human is unbothered.
Exactly. If your version of socialization is shoving them into crowded spaces and forcing interaction when they are clearly uncomfortable, that noticing instinct doesn't calibrate. It solidifies into fear. They learn that the environment is overwhelmingly invasive.
And this calibration process directly translates to the most famous or perhaps infamous Pomeranian trait, which is barking.
Oh yes, the barking.
How you handle a puppy's barking is the ultimate test of teaching that recovery muscle. Because I see owners do one of two things when a tiny fluffy puppy barks at a shadow. Either they laugh it off because a 5-pound dog puffing out its chest and trying to sound tough is undeniably hilarious.
That is cute, I'll admit.
It is. Or they panic. They get embarrassed that their dog is making noise and they yell at the dog to be quiet.
And from a behavioral standpoint, both of those reactions just fuel the fire. Laughing and giving them affectionate attention reinforces the behavior. You're telling them that being hypervigilant earns them praise.
And yelling.
Yelling at the dog is even worse. You are just adding loud, chaotic, aggressive energy to a situation where the dog's nervous system is already highly stimulated. To the dog, you aren't correcting them. You're just barking along with them at the perceived threat.
Wow, so you're basically joining the pack and agreeing that there's danger.
Exactly.
So how do we actually teach the nervous system to de-escalate? The protocol in the sources is fascinating because it completely bypasses the instinct to just suppress the noise.
Yes, it's a 3-step process.
Right. Step 1, you acknowledge the bark. You calmly let the dog know, yes, I see the thing you are noticing. The alarm worked.
You validate the noticing.
Step 2, you redirect their attention away from the trigger and back to you. And step 3, which is the most critical part, you reward the puppy the precise moment they settle down and choose quiet.
You are rewarding the recovery. You aren't pretending the loof didn't blow across the yard. You're confirming the data, taking over the guard duty, and then rewarding the dog for successfully turning off the car alarm.
And over time, the nervous system learns that de-escalation is what brings the highest value reward.
Exactly.
Now, that vital skill of settling down isn't just for when they see a stranger outside. It is the exact same mental muscle they need for the deeply unglamorous, everyday maintenance of being a fluffy, highly attached companion dog.
Maintenance is the perfect word for it.
We have to build lifelong tolerances for handling, grooming, and emotional independence. And this is where so many well-meaning owners accidentally set themselves up for a decade of misery.
Usually out of procrastination, honestly, because the early puppy weeks trick you into a false sense of security.
Right, the grooming illusion. You look at an 8-week-old Pomeranian, and their coat is this soft, short, manageable little puff. The thought process is, well, the real massive adult double coat doesn't come in until later, so I'll worry about serious brushing later.
Which is a huge mistake.
It's exactly like waiting until your kid is a teenager to teach them how to brush their teeth. If you wait that long to introduce a foreign, invasive concept, it is inevitably going to result in a massive wrestling match.
And if a puppy's first real grooming experience is a wrestling match with a metal slicker brush at 6 months old, you've already lost.
The behavioral habit of accepting physical handling has to be built long before the physical necessity of the adult coat arrives.
Yes, it starts with gentle, short, highly positive touches. You touch their paws, you handle their ears, you lift their tail.
And you do this when their nervous system is already calm.
Exactly, and you pair it with high-value rewards. You're building an association.
And we have to emphasize that this isn't just about keeping them looking pretty. Mats in the fur aren't just cosmetic tangles.
Not at all.
When a double coat mats, those tangles act like tight rubber bands pulling continuously on the skin. It causes acute physical pain, restricts their movement, and can hide severe skin infections.
Getting them entirely comfortable with a brush is a fundamental animal welfare issue.
It really is. And speaking of physical handling, there is a very specific mechanical reason you have to get them used to having their mouths touched, too.
Retained baby teeth. It is incredibly common in small breeds, largely due to the sheer lack of space in their tiny jaws.
Right. The biology just runs out of real estate. So what happens is the adult teeth start erupting from the gums, but the roots of the baby teeth haven't dissolved properly.
So the baby teeth don't fall out.
Exactly. You end up with 2 teeth occupying the space of one. This causes severe crowding, it traps bacteria, and leads to rapid dental decay if those baby teeth aren't surgically extracted.
And if you haven't spent those early puppy weeks gently lifting their lips and massaging their gums, you aren't going to be able to monitor their mouth for that crowding.
And your vet is going to have a near impossible time trying to examine them safely later on. So you're building tolerance for physical intrusion. But equally important, and perhaps much harder for the humans involved, is building tolerance for emotional distance.
Yes.
A Pomeranian is bred to be a companion. They bond with an intensity that is genuinely remarkable, but that beautiful shadow-like attachment has a dark side.
Separation distress.
Yeah. If they don't learn how to exist independently of you early on, that cute desire to follow you into the bathroom turns into a full-blown panic attack the moment you actually need to leave the house for work.
Which is heartbreaking for the dog and the owner.
So how do we build that independence without making a tiny bonding puppy feel completely abandoned?
It relies entirely on managing arousal states.
Yeah.
It starts with short, structured alone times in that safe, quiet space we discussed earlier. You build up the duration gradually, but the absolute most critical variable in preventing separation anxiety is the human's behavior upon returning.
The calm return.
Yes.
This is where we sabotage ourselves so badly. We walk in the door after being gone for an hour, and our instinct is to throw a massive emotional parade. Oh my gosh, I miss you so much. You're the best puppy.
We treat coming back from the grocery store like we just returned from a 5-year voyage at sea.
We do. It's impossible not to want to cuddle them.
But let's look at the mechanics of what that actually does to the dog's brain. By providing that massive dopamine spike upon your return, you are teaching the dog that your arrival is the most highly stimulating, dramatic, peak event of their entire existence.
So you're gone.
The entire time you're gone, they are not relaxing. They're in a state of high arousal anticipation. They're basically vibrating with stress, waiting for that explosion of excitement.
Wow. So a calm, almost boring return flattens that emotional curve?
Exactly. It teaches the puppy that you leaving and coming back is just a mundane, routine part of life. There's nothing to stress over and nothing to wind up for.
You just keep the emotional temperature manageable. And honestly, that concept of keeping the temperature manageable applies perfectly to their physical exercise too. We know we have to protect their joints, but they still have all this spitz energy to burn.
The key is that exercise for a Pomeranian puppy should be short, supervised play bursts.
It is not endurance training. You aren't taking a 4-month-old Pom for a 5-mile run.
No, please don't do that.
And you absolutely shouldn't be dropping them in a dog park for rough play with big dogs where their physical structure could be easily compromised. It's short bursts of energy expenditure followed by real restorative rest.
It really all cycles back to the overarching theme of this whole discussion,
Mm.
balancing protection with development.
Yeah.
Because if you lean entirely into protection, you create an anxious, poorly socialized dog that views the world as a threat and panics at the sight of a brush. But if you push for independence and exposure without protecting their small, fragile bodies, you risk catastrophic physical harm.
It's a tightrope walk. So, as we wrap up this exploration, if you take away nothing else from this deep dive, let it be this. Raising a Pomeranian puppy is a high-stakes, deeply intentional balancing act. It is two halves of a whole.
Mm.
On one side, you have the gentle, vigilant protection of a very tiny, fragile physical body that is subject to the unforgiving laws of physics and biology. And on the other side, you have the consistent, structured, deliberate building of a confident, independent mind.
The size of the dog is tiny, but the scale of the decisions being made around it is massive. Every single brushing session, every measured meal to maintain their blood sugar, every time you calmly redirect a bark, and every boring, uneventful return through the front door.
They aren't just moments to get through.
No, they are the literal construction materials of the adult dog you will live with for the next 10 to 15 years.
It entirely reframes how you look at those chaotic, sleepy, frustrating puppy days, doesn't it?
It really does.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, next time we are going to dive deep into the granular mechanics of food and nutrition, what goes in the bowl, how their unique metabolism processes it, and why it matters so much for a dog this size. And of course, a quick reminder that our discussion today is for educational purposes. You should always consult your vet to establish those crucial medical baselines for your dog.
The strong professional partnership is the bedrock of keeping a small dog healthy.
Absolutely. But before we go, I want to leave you with a broader thought to chew on. We started this deep dive looking at a tiny puff of a puppy, hesitating at the edge of a rug, quietly mapping the environment and gathering the confidence to climb a mountain of a couch.
A great image.
And we've just spent all this time uncovering how a puppy's entire adult personality, its resilience, and its emotional stability are quietly constructed by the smallest, seemingly insignificant daily routines. Like exactly how much eye contact we make when we walk through the front door.
Right.
So it makes you wonder if an entire lifetime of confidence and behavior is built on those tiny, invisible daily repetitions, what tiny daily habits in our own human lives are quietly constructing our future selves without us even realizing it.
That is a very profound question to leave on.
Something to ponder while you watch your puppy try to conquer the living room. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.